Let's get started. Good morning. Are you on the JavaScript wavelength after the long weekend? So let's see. For today, there was a request to add some additional resources for practicing JavaScript besides the examples from class. And in fact, Aaron provided an example with working with the Rails from the 30-day JavaScript Vanilla Challenge. So he made this your assignment for the next couple of weeks, and you can work through the assignment. Would you like to tell us, you've done a few of those? Do you have anything to share about it, Aaron?
I just think that it's the vanilla JavaScript 30-day challenge that this guy did, and he's really good at JavaScript. And it kind of makes me think back just to like times in my life where like just standing next to somebody who's really good, there's so many things you learn from them that like they're not even trying to teach you things. They just do something and you go, oh, I didn't know you could do that. And then you kind of learn that way. And so I really like these videos because he's like that. He's just been doing it for so long. I think there's a lot of things he just does intuitively that I didn't know you could do. And so it's really cool to go through the videos and be like, oh, neat. Like you can do a shortcut this way, or it's easier to make it long so that way you can change this part later. So it's really cool tutorial.
So give it a try and do your best with the exercises. And otherwise for today we're going to continue with jQuery, and we might, or I might need to push back your homework from Monday to Wednesday. That's a likely scenario. So the first part I would like to do with jQuery is I would like to work with forms in jQuery. So I have an example that's not from the book that I made, and we're going to start with that. So you tried working with, did we do forms with JavaScript? We did, right? And you, what was your experience with forms with JavaScript?
You said that one input box, wasn't it?
I think so. Maybe it's limited, so maybe you don't have a lot of experience with it, but generally it's not, exactly fun. So with jQuery, it becomes a lot easier. So I'm going to show you an example using the jQuery val method, VAL. And the example we're going to do is start in the class will be create a travel list and then use jQuery to add items to your travel wish list. So it will exercise a few different things and also some other methods such as hide and show. And let's start with that, and then we'll see how much time we have. And also students, I guess there was someone who came to my office last night and is requiring a little bit of lab time to work on your homework still or to finish up. So I'm going to try to give you time again, open lab, again in class. See here, just a second. Oh, you know what? I didn't have the mic. That's why I said that. Because the mic focuses the sound. Let me go back. Okay. The mic really makes a difference. Apparently, this is the kind of mic that bloggers like to have, so it's a very good mic. I didn't know that. All right. Free podcast. That's what I meant. No bloggers, podcasts. That's right. second here. So I think we'll just work with the example and then I will talk about the different methods that we encounter. So save your file as starting your file and save as jQuery -form -ex, for example, .html. And I'm going to put all the code in the same page, in the same HTML page, and then I'm going to give you a little in-class exercise to refactor it and then put it in a separate file and then include it. But for now, we're just putting it all in the same file. So let's go ahead and start with a doc type HTML. And is there an issue? You can see the name. Well, again, you can name it whatever you want, but jQuery -form -ex is what I named it. It's up to you. So this title will be jQuery forms. What do you do here? Not title, this is body. And in the body, we're going to have a div containing our files. In the div, we're going to have an h2, my travel, wish list, and then a UL with list items, and then put your 3-4 travel wish list countries. These are the ones I have up here. So I really want to go to Mars. It's on top of my list. You don't need to know Mars? Yes, yes. I'm sure he will. Thank you. All right, and then we have a paragraph with the ID of new country button, BTN. And the paragraph is going to be wrapped around a button with a href of hashtag, meaning it's going to stay on the same page, and an ID of show form. And add new country. So this button when the user clicks it, it's going to display a form with a simple form with an input field and a submit that you can enter the name of the country. So we're going to add a form, and I wonder if is it necessary, or would it be helpful if we review forms, or are you all solid with forms from HTML? Are you all solid? No? So let's finish writing those 2 lines, and then I'll go and pull up a little tutorial on forms. So input type text, ID, country, description, placeholder, country name. So this is the first input field, and the second will be of type submit, ID of add button, and value of add. I don't know why I teach forms in my class, and I know they're in Web 110, but it seems that students are never comfortable with forms. I don't know why that is. Okay, and let's see, so close our div here. Let's see. Okay, so we close the div, and then we're done with HTML for the page. So let's just preview, and then we're going to look at some W3 tutorials on forms, and then we're going to add our JavaScript. So open with, yeah, I will, just 1 second. So this is what the static page will look like right now. So that's where you should be when you're finished typing right here. Let's see. So I like to check the static page before I add the JavaScript, so that if there is something wrong with it, catch it sooner rather than later, then you don't have to worry about something wrong with HTML impacting the jQuery or the JavaScript. Let's see here. Can I bring up another screen, or are you still working on this? Still working? Okay, another minute, and then I'll pull up the forms screen. Okay. Okay, so we'll try to correct this. All right, so go ahead and open as well on your machines. Let's see. So let's do the W3 schools. HTML forms. All right. Okay. So if you like work on your own machine, or you can look up here. So a form is what we use to get user input, right? So they're very important because in a business, for business goals, one of the main goals of a business would be to actually collect information from the user. And so I tell this story in the Web 110 class. I used to work in Lexus websites, and the dealers were most concerned about leads. So we had all kinds of issues with JavaScript, but the one thing that was like a big priority and everybody had to drop what they're doing and work on it was if the forms for leads failed, because they wanted to get all these people's names so that they can, call them 20 times and so on. So forms are very important because they allow a business to collect data about the user, and then they open a communication channel. And a form is a form element. So here we open, let's look at this. So you have a form element, and then there are different form controls that you can have inside the form. One of the most basic form controls is the input type, the input field, which can be of type text or submit. And the input field is one such as this one here, where you can enter text, such as your name. And you can also set a value or put a placeholder attribute with HTML5 so that when the input field shows up, it has something already showing in it, such as Mickey. And then I can, and then you override the placeholder with, for example, your name, so Stunny Mouse, and then you submit. And then it's submitted to the server. How does the form know where to submit? This is based on the action attribute. So the forms have attributes. One of them is the action attribute, and the other one that is not listed here is the method attribute. The method can be get or post. If you don't have a method, by default, the submission happens through a get. So what this means is, take a look again here. When you submit with get, the URL on the form would include a key value pair of the name of the field, or the name of the field and then the value. So in this case, the name is first name, and then the value is Mickey. And that's the only way that submission to the server can happen. So if you don't have a name, then the form, essentially PHP doesn't know what to do with it. So you need to have those key value pairs. If you use post instead of get, the form, which is actually what you should use with forms, then the form submission becomes secure. You cannot see the URL, including the key value pairs. And it also means you can submit larger chunks of data. So these are two different methods of submitting a form. And normally the action is where the form is processed, and normally this would be a PHP file on the server end, right? So you're familiar that essentially we have a couple, I think I talked about this, but we now seem to be dealing with two types of full stacks. One of them is with PHP, that's the older stack, and then the new one is where we have JavaScript front end to back end, right? But they both accomplish the same. And so this is the action in the form. And then input is one of the types of control inside the form, and there are several other ones. And so you can also have, see here, you can have another form of control called the radio button. The radio button is the type of control where you select one of options and you can only select one, right? So now we said what is a form. Now we're talking about the controls that can go inside the form. Only one or many or all. It just depends on what you want to have in the form. With the radio button, you have a name, value, and then you can specify which one is checked by default with a checked attribute.
Does that mean one of them is checked?
Correct. So what happens is when you run it, it's going to start with mail check. And you can, if you put it here, then it starts with other, and then you can change the selection. But with a radio button, you can only have one at a time selected. The submit button is what submits the form to the action page. So when you click submit, it goes to the action page. So every form needs to have a submit if you have to submit it to the server.
Doesn't it always refresh the page essentially?
That's a really interesting question. So it's not so much that it refreshes it, it sends it to here. Well, yes, actually, if you have a hashtag, it will refresh the page. So in fact, what we're going to do with the exercise I'm about to show you is we're going to use a method prevent default because we don't want it to do that. We want to stay on the same page. So by default, it will, but you can prevent it with a certain method. So good question. So that's the submit. The action attribute, the methods get or post. As I mentioned, the name attribute is important when you're submitting to the server. So in HTML5, we have the field set, which is a nice visual addition to, not just visual, but the reason I'm saying not just visual is because it's also semantic. So in other words, it gives this visual look, which is very nice, but also the screen readers would read this is a field set. So both provides semantic information and visual in this case. And it's an HTML5 edition. And you can add a legend to it, such as here, personal information. So if I change this to personal info, it will change it. So that's, I really like, it's a nice, easy way to add some, little formatting to your form. So this is the field set. And it's available with HTML5.
What's the difference between legend and...
All right, so label is what we would use. So legend goes with the field set.
Mm-hmm.
So the legend is the label for the field set, whereas the labels are the labels for the controls inside the form. Right? Good question. So that's a review of forms for you. There are other form controls besides, let's see, maybe I should keep on going here. So there is a select, maybe I should review this as well. So the select with options is the drop-down menu where you select one of these options. And there's a text area. So I'm sure you all have seen the text area. You can change the rows and the columns values, so make it bigger or smaller. And then the button. And so HTML5 added some additional elements. And let's see. The HTML5 form elements. Let's see from forms. All right, I can't find it right now, but with HTML5, in addition to input text, you can also have input URL, a phone number format, and HTML5 added the attribute required. So what that means is that if you add required on your form field, when you're submitting it, it's going to require some information be entered by the user before it submits it. So if I set here, if I don't have a default value, and if I say required, this was correctly required. So now if I submit, HTML5 is going to say, hey, you need to enter something. And you can also specify that the type is not just text, but also it can be, like I said, email or URL. And if that's the case, then it's going to force you to put the proper format for a URL. So that's a very easy and efficient way to do some very basic validation of your form fields. What else can I say here? If a browser doesn't support the HTML5 elements, then instead of being a URL or email, it's going to be treated as plain text. So that's just how it works. I think so. I mean, yeah, if it's not implemented, I think it would ignore it. Good question. Probably ignore it. So you need to count on being on the browser supporting HTML5 if you want to use it, which I think actually is pretty funny because I just posted a link to the Facebook page. I don't know how many of you follow that, but NASA just released. Let me see if I can find it. Give it to you guys. Hold on. I don't want to log into my Facebook here, but just a second. Okay, so I just posted this yesterday. On February 24th, NASA will go start streaming NASA TV in HTML5 rather than Flash. So this is a NASA announcement. So users with Windows computers should use Chrome or Firefox browser for the best experience. I posted it because it was funny. You know, I like to pick on. Not using Flash, using HTML5, and for optimal experience, don't use Edge or IE or whatever it is they have right now. Okay. So any other questions on forms? Because you do need to know forms to work with them, obviously. No? All right. So back to our example. So the next thing we need to do then is, if we're going to be using jQuery, what do we need to do next? We need to add a link to the script. So I'll let you do this. See if you remember how to do it. And remember, you can put it in the head or in the before the closing body tag. I'll just put it in the body. So go ahead and grab a link to the jQuery library. And I use the Google one. And then add it to your page. I'll give you a moment to get this in place, the script, and then we'll continue from here. All right, so let's go ahead and add, again, what we'll do is we're going to add a script in here, and then I'll ask you to refactor and pull it out of the HTML file. So another script tag, and remember that it makes a difference to put it after the link to the library because you need those methods available. And so now let's go ahead and start our jQuery, and I've added comments here. And the first comment is we want to make sure the elements are ready. And remember, we showed you last time we learned the document ready function. Okay, so there is also an alternative syntax to it, which is shorter. And this is the syntax $ function. And to close this here, we need to have, I like to close it when I open it. So you close the curly brace, and then you close the opening parent, and then you put a semicolon. And this is a nice feature of brackets, which is that you can match your parents. So that's something else I'd like you to try before you call me or Aaron to look at it, if you're having problems. All right, and so everything is going to go inside the documentary function. And the first thing we're going to do is cache the jQuery object references in variables. And again, if we're going to use something multiple times, we cache it in a variable. If we're just going to use it once and then sort of in passing, then we can just call the code directly, the reference to the object. So it's going to be var new country button. So that's the first one. Is equal to $ new country button. And then we're going to, let's add all three of them, and then we'll look at what do they reference in HTML. Then we have add country. Add country. And then the last one is going to be input text. Input colon text. And so what that means is it's a selector from a form where we are saying I want you to select the input fields of type text, right? Because as we saw in the documentation, you can have an input field of type submit as well, or radio. And so we're saying I want you to select any input fields of type text. Does this make sense? So you're just learning the new syntax, how to do this here. Okay, let's go and see what is referenced by these variables. So the country, what is the new country button? It's that paragraph that wraps around the button. So we're selecting that. And then the add country is the form itself, right? So the form is that we have a reference to the paragraph containing the button, a reference to the form itself, and a reference to the input type text, which is going to contain the description of the country. Right. All right, so that's part one. Then the next part is going to be the following. So take a look here. Do I still have the... All right, so right now in the static page, the button and the input field and the submit button, they're all visible. What we're going to do is we're going to start by hiding the form and only show add country. So when the user clicks, then if they want to click, that's when we're going to show the form. And that will allow us to use a couple of jQuery methods while we are doing this. So add a comment, hide form, and show new country button. So the new country button, also just to remind you, if we have variables referencing jQuery, we're going to start them with a $, right? So the new country button object reference, we're going to say .show. So this is a jQuery method, which you guessed it, is going to show it on the page. Whereas the add country, which is the form, we're going to say hide, and this will hide it initially. So when the page is first loaded, it will show the country button. but it will hide the form. So let's take a look. I'll save the changes. Take a look up here, please. So this is how it is, and when I refresh the page, the form disappears because we said hide. Okay. Joss, you look like you were.
Why would we hide?
Why would we?
Yeah.
Because we want to demonstrate how the hide method works, and it looks a little better without it.
It looks so sharp.
It looks much sharper like that. Because if the user clicks on the, so I'll show you why. So what's happening is the way we're doing this is, now if the user said add new country, right now nothing is happening, but when they click, we're going to make it so then it shows the form then. So it will show up, but later. All right, good questions. So next we have show the form and hide the button. All right, so now we're going to express, how do you express a jQuery when the user clicks on this button here? And this happens in the following way. So $, so show form, and just to scroll up here. So this is the show form button. So when the user clicks on show form, and then in jQuery, we handle all events with the method on. So this is a new information for you. If you want to handle an event in jQuery, you say on. And then we're going to pass in the event and the function that is going to handle the event, right? So it's that's how it is for all events in jQuery. So in this case, we want to handle click, and then we have an anonymous function to add. And so when the user clicks on the button, we're going to hide the new country button, which is this one. So we're hiding this, and we're going to show the form. Does this make sense? Okay. So right now, if I refresh the page, so okay, before I refresh the page, when we click on add country button, nothing happens. Refresh the page, and now when I click on, let's see, did it miss something, or just a second? Oh, okay, so we need to add a few more lines before we can show this. Okay, so we're going to say add, just a second. Okay, so add the country. I would expect this to show now, so let me just double check if I saved it. Right? Is it showing? Yeah, so I think maybe I didn't save it. So let's see here. Where is it? Where is it? Okay, so that's what we wanted to see. So that's, we just had to be saved. So again, now with the last two lines of code that we added, when you click on the show form button, you get new country button is displayed and the add country form is shown. So this is just the input field, but it is a form, right? And then once we have displayed the form, then we're going to add the code to add a country, upload it to the list, and then submit. So that's the next piece of work, and this all goes inside the document ready. So here we're going to call an anonymous function when the form is submitted. So now when the user clicks on the add country, but sorry, not add, but the event that is going to trigger it is submit. So take a look up here, please. The add country form has a submit button. So what we're saying is when the submit event is triggered, then you're going to execute the following function. And just to be sure that I said this clearly. So the on method takes two arguments. The first one is the name of the event. The second is the function that is going to handle the event. Question, Josh?
We were just wondering if that was a dot or comma.
It was a typo. Yeah, I fixed it. All right, so okay. So open the curly brace, close the curly brace, and then you need to close the opening parent and the all right, so do you notice this E that is getting passed in the function? So this is the event object we're passing. That is the global object for events I mentioned in a previous lecture. And the reason we're passing it is because next we want to call a method called prevent default, which is a method of the event object. And the prevent default is going to stop the form from submission, right? So we could have done this instead of with submit with a click, but we're doing it with submit so you can see this. And again, the idea is that if you have an event, if you have an event that is going to have a default behavior, let's say to take you to a different page, but that's not what you want, you can call on the prevent default method and then keep your code on the same page. So this is what this prevent default does. So it stops the form from submission. Another example is if you click on a link, if you don't want the user to actually go on the other page when they click on a link, you can prevent default. All right, and now that we have prevented default, then we're going to say, now we're going to use the val, which is the method available to jQuery to get and set input fields data. So we use val to get, val gets the value entered by the user. So val both sets and gets values. If you're getting the value, which is what we're doing, it's going to get, so listen to this because it's not intuitive. It's going to get the first value that it encounters on the page. If you have multiple input fields, input text fields, it will get you the value of the first one. If you use val to set, it's going to set all of them. I don't know why it's like that, but it is like that. So the functionality is not symmetric between the get and the set of the method. So how do we use val? So we're going to have a variable new text is equal to text input dot val. and the text input was the input field with type text. Okay, Daniel? Yeah, we do. Thank you. Okay. All right, and now new text is going to store, let's say, the country, China, and now that value will be stored in the variable new text. So then what we need to do next is add it to the list. So now we have it in the program, it's available to us. Now we need to add it to our list. So we're going to use a method called after, adds a new item to the end of the list. All right, so we're going to select this. We're going to select the list item last. So that's a jQuery selector, allows you to select exactly what you see here, the last item with tag of list item, and then dot after. So dot after is like an append, is going to add at the end of the list, and then inside the after, we can actually create HTML. We can concatenate HTML tags with variables. So we're going to construct a list item in here. In other words, list item, li, new text, and then close the list item. Yeah, it does. I don't know why I keep on that. Thank you. Oh, you know what? Yeah, okay, that's fine. All right, so, and there's the process here. Okay, and then we're going to restore the page to show the add country button so that if the user wants, they can add multiple countries instead of just one time. So we're going to say add country dot hide. So we hide the form. New country show. So we're going to show the button that prompts them if they want to add a new country. And lastly, the text input variable where they entered the country, we're going to use val now to set it to an empty string so that we clear the previous entry. And you have two sets of closing the anonymous functions. So we have the last one is for the document ready, and then inside document ready we have two sets of anonymous functions. So after all this is done, let me test mine and then I'll let you finish. So let's take a look and see if this works for us right now. So if I say add country, so Peru, right? And then where? What? Sorry, he's okay. Canada's fine. All right, you okay? All right, so anyway, this is what you want to do and you can keep on adding. So let you finish, make sure this works for you. Test it out. Have any questions? Ask any questions you might have. And then we'll take our break and go from there.
Some way that you could call the script in Swedish?
Well, I can. What it means is the font size will be smaller and the students in the back won't be able to see it. Right? So, I don't know if it's fair to the students in the back, but.
How does the web page look again? you should, then button should disappear after.
Yes, after you add it. And here is the code. If you're having, if something is not working, make sure to check the console before you call mirror errand, and also check to make sure that your references to the elements are correct in terms of spelling and everything else, and casing. Yours is working?
It wasn't a misspelled country.
Yeah.
It's called jQuery.
They wanted to go. Yeah.
All right, so I think it's time for our first break. And then I'll see you in 10 and we'll figure out if we continue with this or we'll have time.
It's probably something that you just can't see because you're working on.
I know.
This one. Can I switch? Yeah, are you guys still use this one? Are you use this one?
I'm pretty sure it was 9, and I was.
I was actually looking
She wasn't even trying to do all my stuff. Like I looked at her stuff and I found that people other sheets in my field like for like 5 years. But yeah.
So let's see.
Yeah, and she doesn't decide it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. I know, that's the most common thing. I think it's easier if they just do them out there. You understand? But sometimes people are like,
Yours, for your form?
yeah.
She's getting underlying Should not be there. Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, it makes sense. And so I put it like this, 2 and 4, and also added that. Because it's a text. It's like they just are symbols. Yeah, sometimes it's like,
Yeah. I was looking at those video videos. It's easier to just
yeah.
when she uses her right?
That's not like the
Yeah.
um, yeah. Oh yeah, she's she's not like the
No, but I think there's, she don't look forward to, the thing comes to it. She comes Yeah.
What is everyone working on? MPG? I'm sorry? Do you guys want lap time or do you like to continue? I tried to give you lap time. Is this useful? Okay. Let's do lap time. And we're going to continue with jQuery on Monday though. There's some more from chapter. Well, we're going to continue with jQuery for a few classes, but on Monday there will be more from chapter 7 because this is a very big chapter. So I'm going to change the homework due from Monday to Wednesday. And then let's give open lab now. And that's it.
Is there another exercise you were going to do?
No. This was the exercise for today. Make sure to understand it and if not, ask me questions. So this was the part of the chapter talking about how to handle forms with jQuery. And there are a couple other topics as well. Stop the recording.